Hi everybody, opening day, pheasant season, 1 week from Saturday. The corn's out, which is a good thing. Lots of pheasants, lots of deer, lots of rabbits. So it's going to be a great year. Back when I was in grade school, I used a high standard Supermatic Trophy 20 gauge, which was a lousy gun, a single shot more than anything else. Really a horrible gun, but it fit me and I could hit with it. The load of the day back then was sold by Sears. Sears high power, 1.25 ounce, 3-inch 20 gauge loads. Those are made by Federal. They were not particularly high quality loads, and they were not buffered. Well, I've been using that load on wild pheasants for decades, many decades. It does a great job. You can find them today. Remington makes them. They call them nitro turkey or nitro pheasant. Why it's a turkey load, I have no idea. It's only 1.25 ounce payload at a moderate velocity, 1185 feet per second. And this is current Remington packaging. Winchester XX, Grex buffered, excellent loads as well. Pick your favorite. They both do a good job. 1.25 ounce number 5s are both at the same velocity, 1185 feet per second. People get hung up on velocity, but of course the velocity in the box is not muzzle velocity. It says muzzle velocity, but it's not muzzle velocity. It's actually 3-foot instrumental velocity. In Illinois, 3 feet is about a yard. It's considered the average velocity in a lab 1 yard away from the muzzle. They do it a yard away from the muzzle, apparently because round pellets lose velocity incredibly quickly in the first 3 feet of travel. So it's actually a faster muzzle velocity load than indicated, than assumed. When people talk about velocity, it's not muzzle velocity, it's 3-foot instrumental velocity through a SAMI barrel, which nobody has a SAMI barrel that they hunt with. Anyway, it's a little windy, it's about 20 miles an hour, most of it is going outward, but it's typical hunting here. It's always windy. 15 to 20 is very typical. 1.25 ounce number 5s. As I mentioned, Winchester XX is the same load, 1.25 ounces, 1185 feet per second. Your choice. They're both very competitive loads in my experience. That one shot with the Sorix, this is an incredible 35-yard pattern. So this is all part of the normal preseason fun of finding out exactly what your gun does with a specific shell and a specific choke tube. And in this case, here's a new choke tube from Trulock, Chad Hodges, I guess. It's ported and it's either camo or gold. So it's more of a Trulock glamour puss type choke. The porting doesn't do anything to choke tube performance either way. Zero, nada. And Trulock doesn't claim that. It's about style and it's about aesthetics and what you prefer. And if you've got one of these chokes in, if your gun's in a rack, it's pretty easy to pick out. So the gold looks good for a brighter, more deluxe looking gun. Of course the camo makes more sense if you've got a plastic camo gun. Anyway, those are out from Trulock right now. And Scott and Chad, they've got some videos discussing what they went through to come up with the best compromise for most hunting situations. So one thing I can tell you that most people don't realize is that 20 gauges with the most common hunting loads have about 20% less than 12 gauges with the most common hunting loads. A good 12 gauge load is typically 1.25 ounces, 1,400 feet per second, although super pheasant loads are heavier, 1 3/8 ounces, around 1,350, 1,400 feet per second. And with a 7-pound gun, you're going to get at least 20% more recoil than you are with a 6.25 pound gun. With the same 1.25 ounce payload. The difference is the velocity, 1185 feet per second. And the difference is performance on game at velocity is trivial. It's minimal as far as wind drift and drop, certainly out to 50 yards. There's just not much to it. But you can see I've just got a shirt on, and this is not going to kick me into next Tuesday. There's no pain, there's no discomfort. And we're talking about pheasant hunting, it's just a couple shots a day, so it's absolutely nothing. And you've got your upland jacket on, colder weather, you've got a layer or two. So, very, very pleasant gun to shoot. But yet, it's 6.25 pounds, and as far as range, with lead, there's no significant difference. You just choke it for the distances you're shooting, just like you would with a 12 gauge. Does the 12 gauge have more range? Well, slightly, yeah. If you go with 1 3/8 ounces or even 1.5 ounces, they even make 1 5/8 ounces lead loads at 4s or 5s. Certainly, you can't get more pellets in your pattern than you have in the shell before it's fired. But for most people, typical hunting ranges, and of course, easier to carry, more fun to carry. So 6.25 pounds here, typical 12 gauge hunting gun, 7.25. If you wanted the same recoil levels, 1185 1.25 ounces versus 1,400 1.25 ounces out of a 12 gauge, you would have to have an 8.5 pound 12 gauge. That's just math. That's the way it is. So, if you're out shooting 1.25 ounce, 3-inch so-called magnums, nobody knows what a magnum is. How do you get a 3-inch? How do you get a 3-inch shell, a 3-inch 20 gauge shell that isn't a magnum? Does it exist? Of course not. It's just an 1.25 ounce shell. So, but you're not going to get patterns with an ounce of 5s. Anywhere close. I guess if there's a winner, even though I'm shooting the same shell at the same distance over and over again, and there is a breeze out here, obviously, there's a lot of variables, and to be scientific about it, a good sample size to get an average pellet percentage, you're really, it's not even 5 shots. Sometimes it takes 20, 30, even more. So you'd have to bang paper 100 shots per distance to have any type of really firm average. And then that would be with one gun and one choke and one shell at one range. So you can see this, not really practical. But this guy, out of the Weatherby Sorex, one shot. Is that a great 35-yard pheasant pattern or not? I think it is. That's absolutely fantastic. It is just unbelievable. There is no pheasant that is not going to get whacked multiple times. And that's with a Trulock Precision Hunter Improved Modified. So, the Italian Weatherbys run a little tight as far as bore diameter in their 20 gauges. So where you'd use a modified, you're looking at improved modified or even a light full. But it doesn't get much better than that with number 5, 1.25 ounce number 5s. Doesn't get better than that with the 12 gauge or any other gauge. Really good. So have fun out there, and don't be amazed if your 20 gauge has a lot less recoil, a lot less kick than your buddy's 12 gauge, because it probably does.